Hey guys, so like I said, I want to do my predictions, and I like to do at least 6 of them and all that. But before I do, I want to talk about just give my thoughts overall on what I thought. Basically this third season has been like, and I briefly talked about it at the end of my review. But this third season to me of the Melty series by Michelle, also known as DezzieArts, DEZZIE Arts over at DeviantArt. Like I said briefly at the end of the review, I thought this was good. I thought this season was good. I love the fact that you're getting character development basically with Elizabeth, and her basically being a master of disguise. To me, is really helping her quickly adapt to the situation that she's been now given, the opportunity she has been now given by Michelle and Zara, with being able to turn into, goo and melt and all that, and really just embrace it, as something that, she looks at, from a perspective of, hey, if I had these powers beforehand, when I'd be hired to do certain jobs, I wouldn't have to rely on someone like Lindsay, the lady that's in charge of the Shantae massage business. She wouldn't have to rely on that lady to call upon her all the time because she'd pretty much be set for life having powers like these. But what's interesting, though, is it's not just Elizabeth we're getting character development here. We're getting it with Miyai and Zara, especially at the end when we find out that because Miyai and Zara had been taking the formula a lot longer than Elizabeth, basically is now integrated into the veins, into the DNA, to the point that, as alluded to in the last chapter I reviewed, they could stop basically taking the formula. They could stop taking it and still have it, reside within them. In other words, they wouldn't have to, drink, the potion, the formula on a constant basis because now it's part of the blood. It's part of their biology as humans that makes them beyond human and probably makes them part of something even greater, but they're not too sure of what that could be. They're not too sure exactly what this could lead to, in a sense, but all they know is for themselves, Zara and Miyai, they wouldn't have to rely on always taking the formula like, Elizabeth may have to for a while if she wants to keep doing it, because it's a part of them. So in other words, if they stop taking it for a month, but they still want to, melt down into puddles of goop, get intimate that way, and then fuse, they could do so without, taking a dose of the formula, basically. So I like the fact that we're getting development for them, as well, in learning that basically now the formula is pretty much integrated into their DNA. So I like that idea. I also like the idea that the Lindsay antagonist, the Lindsay lady, is not dumb. I mean, again, as I mentioned in the review at the end, when we go back to the sneak peek we got last year with part 9, for this year, because part 9, the sneak peek we got last year with part 9, that was supposed to be for this year. Had Michelle not given us part 9 as a sneak peek last year, it would have been this year we would have gotten the sneak peek. Well, not sneak peek, but we would have gotten part 9 officially. And then that would have meant that basically we'd probably still get a part 14 sneak peek, but it'd probably mostly be on Wednesday, tomorrow, essentially, or at least the beginning of June, we would get a sneak peek, to what the 2024 version or sequel will be like, or continuation will be like. But again, going back to that, it's obviously alluded to that, basically Lindsay is not stupid. She wouldn't be where she is right now, business-wise, successfully, if it wasn't, for the fact that she could catch on to things, other people would think she wouldn't catch on to. even if it doesn't look like nothing's out of the ordinary, she could sense it. So I like the fact that she realizes something happened in her office, even though it doesn't seem like it did, and thus she's going to call upon security cameras. And that's going to make things interesting going into the next season, because you know that Michelle's probably going to put a scenario in there in one of the chapters to where she's basically going to see what's happening, catch on to what's going on, and then try to use that to get the formula. Like, hey, I can expose you guys to the world, expose the fact that one of you, is the freaking bath that people soak in, or you can give me a bit of the profit, or something like that. I could see that happening. But again, I'll talk more about that when I do my predictions. But overall, I've enjoyed this third season, and I cannot wait to see what she has in store for next year. And speaking of next year, why not let us get into those predictions, ladies and gentlemen, right now, and kind of, see exactly where, things may pan out as we head into essentially, as she puts it, the final season, the fourth and final year, if you will, of the series known as Melting Me Eye. Let's see where we head into next with these predictions. All right, so my first prediction basically ties into what I just said. Now, like I said, at the end of part 14, in what is potentially, the prelude into next year, Elizabeth, even though it doesn't look like, not Elizabeth, but Lindsay, I should say, Lindsay, the lady that runs the Shantae business, if you will, she notices that something's off. Even though her office seems to be in order, she notices that something is not right. So she basically, gets on the phone, if you will, and tells her assistant to get people into her office right away to install security cameras, because she wants to see, who had the gold basically to sneak into her office. Now, what's interesting is in the first part, which basically served as an epilogue to this season, to this current season, basically Elizabeth and Mi, who can now fuse into Melissa, which is a combination of both their names, plan to go back to Lindsay's office to, I guess, double check on things, make sure that everything's taken care of, and if they can find anything else. Now, the reason I bring that up in correlation to what what Lindsay, easy for me to say, what Lindsay is having done with the security cameras, the reason I bring this up is because this is where things could get interesting. And this is where I think I predict the first thing's going to happen. That Lindsay, unbeknownst to Mi and Melissa, they are going, not Melissa, but Mi and Elizabeth. Easy for me to say, too many names here, I do apologize. But here's what I predict is going to happen, my first prediction. And that is Mi and Elizabeth, whether or not one of them catches on to the fact that, oh wait, something's off here, and then they look up and they see the cameras, and then escape and realize, okay, we can't do that because she's pretty much onto us, or pretty much knew something happened, unless one of them, mostly Elizabeth, kind of gets this feeling that, wait a minute, something's off here as well, and then they look up and they see the cameras. I could see them basically being like, okay, we got to leave, we got to go, and then escaping without maybe, being detected, as being 2 in 1. That's one thing I could see potentially happening. The other thing, which I believe could be the more likely scenario, because Michelle, DezzieArts, likes to add a little bit of drama into her series, no matter which one she's working on. I think what will happen more than likely is they'll sneak in, not knowing there are security cameras around, and what will happen is that they'll either defuse real quickly, or something's going to happen to both of them, both Mi and Elizabeth will have their heads side by side together on the body, or maybe one of the mouths show up on the, upper region, on the upper part of the bosom, and that'll get caught on camera, and then that's when Lindsay will figure out. So that's what's going on. That's what's happening. That's the form. That's what the formula does. That's why Zara doesn't want to sell it to me. Because of that. In other words, she'll figure out that the reason Zara doesn't want to do business with her, especially when it comes to the restoration soak, is she'll figure out that the restoration soak has to be the Mihai girl, not Elizabeth, but the Mihai girl that's working alongside her, and then she'll also catch on that Elizabeth has betrayed her. So that's going to make things interesting too. So what I see happening more than likely, she'll catch on camera what's going on, see what's happening, and then reveal it to Zara saying, hey, I know your secret and everything. I know that your friend Mihai is the restoration soak that people use. And I guarantee you what she'll do is she'll go the old villainous trope route, like, hey, either sell me your business or give me a huge stake, basically a huge percentage in your profits when it comes to this restoration soak, or else I'll expose you to the world. I'll expose you to those that have, enjoyed your services, and they'll realize that what's been going on is that they've been soaking in somebody potentially feeding off them. I could see that. I could see that being a scenario that plays out. And what would happen is dramatically it could put Zara in a situation to where she's like, she will look at the fact that you wouldn't dare do that. You wouldn't dare expose us and everything. And Lindsay's like, hey, you know me better than anybody else? Try me. So I could see Lindsay finding out what's going on, and that Lindsay will use that to try to extort, Zara into either selling her the formula, selling her business, or giving her a huge percentage of the profits. In other words, basically she gets more financial gain out of it than Zara, and Zara would have no choice but to sell the business. So I could see that being a scenario. So that's my first prediction. My first prediction is I think and could see Lindsay finding out what's going on and trying to use that as extortion to get Zara to either sell her a business, sell her the business, or either let her use her friend to basically make multitudes of the formula, or give her a huge stake in the business to the point that it would result in Zara selling the business. So I could see that happening. That's my first prediction for next year, that Lindsay finds out and she tries to use that to get what she wants. All right, so the next idea I see happening, I predict is going to happen, the next scenario, is I think we're going to get a three-way fusion. That's right. I mean, we already got a fusion with Mihai and Zara as Mara. We already got a fusion now with Mihai and Elizabeth as Melissa. So it only makes sense that all three girls come together in a fusion. But the question is, what will the name be? And that's an interesting one. We know there's Mara, which is a combination of Mihai and Zara. We know there's Melissa, which is a combination of Mihai and Elizabeth. But what name could you combine, for Zara, Elizabeth, and Melissa? You see, that's going to be interesting. Could you have Marara? Could it be Melissa? Melissa? Could it be Maharabith? We don't know. It could be any which one. And it will be interesting to see exactly what name they come up with. But I could see a three-way fusion happening. I can. I could see a three-way fusion occurring between these three, Elizabeth, Zara, and Mei, into one individual. I could see that. I could see that happening, and you know what? I believe it'll happen either at the beginning of season 4, the final season, or I can see it happening in the middle or at the end. It'll happen either way. It's going to happen at the beginning. It'll either happen at the beginning, the middle, or the end. But I predict, just like I thought it was going to happen this year, it didn't. But I predict it's going to definitely happen next year. I predict a three-way fusion between all these girls. I could just see that happening. I can. And you know why? Because it's evident. I mean, just the fact that at the end of part 14, or at least at the end of the epilogue of part 14, which was the epilogue for season 3, you have Mei holding both Zara and Elizabeth's hands. That almost hinted at me that, yeah, we're going to get a fusion. We're going to get a fusion between all three, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what we get, exactly what name they come up with, and what, from a, not visual, but from a story perspective, word perspective, visualized perspective, they will look like, combined together. I can honestly see that happening. So that's my second prediction. We will get a three-way fusion sometime, next year between part 15, 16, 17, and 18. Sorry about that, but like I said, that's what I see happening between part 15, 16, 17, and 18, maybe 19, depending on how many weeks we have next May, if you will. But I predict that we're going to get a three-way fusion either at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. That's what I see happening. Believe me, it's going to happen. And you know what? The three-way fusion might be a way to confront Lindsay. Like, it'll be a combination of all three of them personalities into one, to where basically they're going to be, to where maybe they take a chance. Because we know that when we know when Mei and Zara become Mara, and Elizabeth and Mei become Melissa, that is, basically two separate personalities, in one body, but one basically, at the forefront posing, as, the fusion, as said fusion. So what I could see here happening is not only could we get a three-way fusion, but as a result, I could see a new overall persona coming through from that fusion. In other words, I could see all three of them fusing together, but instead of all three of them, being, personality-wise being in control, or trying to take turns being in control, I could see one personality emerging. And a personality that will allow them, on behalf of them, stand up to Lindsay. I could see that. Now, could I be wrong? Maybe, but outside of that, I'm not going to be wrong about a three-way fusion coming. I see it happening. I know it's going to happen, and it's only a matter of time. And like I said, it's either at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. But it's going to happen. And that's my second prediction. The third prediction is this year we had Mei and Elizabeth fuse. Next year, along with the three-way fusion I predict is going to happen, I predict we're going to get a fusion between Zara and Elizabeth. That's right. The two least experienced, at least the second least experienced, along with the very least experienced outside of Mei, I see them fusing together. That's right. I could see them fusing together and becoming someone new. Like, they'll still, basically just like with Mei and Zara, still personally being in control, of the fusion and taking turns. And the same thing with Mei and Elizabeth when they were Melissa. I can see the same thing here towards Zahara and Elizabeth fused together, and I could see them becoming Zaharabeth or Elizabeth or Elizar or whatever they're going to call her. Eliza, Lizar maybe? Who knows? Eliza, whatever the name might be, I could see it though happening. I can see a fusion between Zahara and Elizabeth happening. It's just, come on, honestly. Again, Zahara, she's learning, she's getting there, almost close to Mei, but not yet. And then Elizabeth, obviously, she's going to learn. So one of the better ways for both of them to truly master this ability, I believe, is going to be through a fusion. So we're going to get Mei, probably, having an intimate, well, I'll get into that in a moment, but I could see Mei encouraging them to do so to help them master their ability. So I see Zahara and I see Elizabeth fusing together into one person. Both in control, but they will fuse. Whatever their name might be is totally up to what Michelle comes up with. All right, so the next one I'm going to talk about, the next one is, I think we're going to see Lindsay, the Lindsay lady in charge of the Shantae business. I see the Lindsay lady going out of business. Yeah, I do. And here's why. It's because basically, as I mentioned at the beginning, I believe she's going to try to expose. Basically, Zahara, at least she's going to try to extort exposure of Zahara's ultimate bliss and the restoration silk and what it's really about, because, as I said, I predict she's going to find out the truth. But I think in the long run, what's going to happen is they're going to turn the tables on her, and they're going to expose her for being somebody that, she really is, and that is an extortionist. Somebody that will find out secrets to other businesses just to buy them out. In other words, secrets to the owners of other massage businesses to buy them out. Thus, resulting in basically her being revealed as an extortionist, and her, because she's revealed as an extortionist, basically being put out of business because her reputation, will be ruined. Her reputation will be ruined, and basically she will either be put behind bars or she'll have to start over again. She'll have to start over from scratch. Or, here's what's interesting, she might end up working for Zahara. Yeah. She might end up working for Zahara to basically, make up for what she's done. So either one of these things are going to happen when she's exposed. Either one of these things are going to happen if she's exposed. And that is, she's either, ladies and gentlemen, going to basically, long story short, she is either going to go to jail because she's exposed for extortion. She's either going to go to jail. 2, she's going to go out of business. 3, she's going to have to start all over again. Or 4, she's going to end up working for Zahara to make up for everything she's done and learn a very valuable lesson of, hey, you want to be in this business, that's great, but don't manipulate or extort people to get ahead. Earn your way to the top. So I could see ultimately, though, that happening, that she will basically be out of business because the truth of her being an extortionist is going to come out. I really believe that. I really do. So that's the next thing I predict. The other thing I predict is Zahara's, I guess you could say her feelings about being part of something greater, as she mentioned in part 14, are going to come to pass. Like, in other words, I can sense something's going to be revealed to them. That, the reason out of all the lotions that Zahara had created, that this one, gave them the abilities that it did, I've got a feeling they're going to find out the truth. They're going to find out the truth, and it's going to have to do with some kind of magic. I don't know why I feel that's going to be what happens, but it is. I got a feeling it's going to have to deal with some kind of magic to where they're going to be visited by some mysterious individual, spiritually or in person, that's going to reveal the truth about, the formula as to why they were chosen and stuff like that. I can feel it. I can feel that they're going to find out the truth as to why they were chosen to be users of this formula. Why they were chosen. Why basically, like I said, out of all the lotions that Zahara had created before for her business, why this one, gave them the abilities that it did. So to me, I think they're going to find out the truth because, again, she alludes to it in part 14 that it feels like they're part of something greater, but she's not sure what that could be. Well, I feel they're going to find out the truth about that next, basically next year, towards the end of the series. I really do. So yeah, to me, that's what I think is going to happen next. They're going to find out the truth. They're going to learn and find out the truth as to what's really going on and as to why they have been given this opportunity by utilizing, a lotion that seemingly is like any other lotion out there, but granted them these abilities. I got a feeling they're going to find out the truth. I really do. Because again, there's got to be an explanation. There's got to be an explanation, and I think we're going to get that explanation next year. And last but not least, I think it's obvious, the last thing I'm going to predict is, even though we didn't see it here, Michelle, she is saving it. She is saving it until next May. We are going to get a three-way, we're going to get a three-way lesbian, LGBTQ, NFSW, erotic finale with these three. I really do believe that. I mean, if you think that basically what we got in parts of season 8, not season 8, but in season 2, in parts 8 and I think 7, I believe, but mostly not part 8, but mostly like part 7 and part 6, and even to an extent part 5, if you think those are something, along with what we got in part 9, the sneak peek for last year, as well as what we got at the end of part 10 earlier, if you think those were something, you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet, because I believe that the finale for this series, if Michelle, aka DezzieArts, is planning for 2024 to be the end, then I've got a feeling this finale is going to take all of what you saw in those parts, part 9, part 7, part 6, to an extent part 5. It's going to take those and it's going to multiply them, 10 times over. It really is. It is going to multiply them 10 times over, because you are going to visually see by reading, in my opinion, some very melty, gooey, liquidy, shape-shifting, NFSW, erotic, lesbian, LGBTQ action of the sexual kind, unlike anything you've visually read before, when it came to the other chapters. I really believe that. I do. Because again, we could have got it this year. We didn't. Because to me, she's saving it up for next year. She's saving it up to really just blow it out, to really blow it all up, if you will. To really blow it all up. Now, could I be wrong? Yeah, probably, but I don't think I am. Because honestly, and I do apologize for that notification there. That was what the buzz was. But honestly, I just feel that that's what she's doing. She's waiting for that moment. Could we get it at the start of the new year, of the new fourth and final season of Melty Me? Absolutely. Could we get it in the middle? Absolutely. But I think more so than anything, she is saving it for the end. That's right. In the final Monday of May 2024, the final Monday of 2024, she is going to basically give us a finale, in my opinion, of the melty, gooey, liquidy, NFSW, erotic, sexual, lesbian kind that's going to take everything else from part 9 to part 8 to part 7, I should say, 6 into an extension 5, and basically take all that, combine it together, and multiply it by 100, if not 1,000. That's what I feel is going to happen. Now, like I said, could I be wrong? Probably. But in this case, I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think that'll be the case because she knows. She knows that people that follow her, that support her, they are expecting something like that to happen. They are expecting something like that to happen, and it's going to. So that, to me, is my prediction, my last prediction of these 6 predictions here of what I see happening in potentially the last run, the last year of this Melty Me series as a series. That's what I see happening. So, like I said, if you thought, we saw some gooey, melty, lesbian, action before, whoo, in my opinion, you ain't seen nothing yet. And that's my last prediction going in. Last prediction I have for next year's 4th and perhaps final installment of the Melty Me series. So yeah, those are my predictions. I predict, Lindsay's going to find out the truth and try to extort Zara into either selling the business to her, either letting her use her friend Mei to, make multitude copies of the formula or whatever, or basically try to force her into giving her a majority percentage of the profits made from the Restoration Soak at Zara's business, thus trying to force Zara to sell to her anyway. I see that happening. Two, I see a 3-way fusion happening between all 3 ladies. Secondly, or third, I see Zara and Elizabeth fusing together. I see that happening. 4, I see Lindsay either being, I see Lindsay going out of business, being exposed for being an extortionist, and that's either going to lead her to being in jail, having to start over, or even working for Zara to make up for what she's done. So I see that happening. I see them, my 5th prediction, finding out basically the truth as to why out of all the lotional, easy for me to say, lotional formulas that Zara's created, that they're going to find out the truth behind why this one gave them the abilities they did. And I think it's going to have something to do with some kind of magic, and that someone or something's going to show up and explain it to them. That's the 5th one. And then, of course, the 6th one that I mentioned, I feel that we're going to get, probably mostly at the end, a very erotic, very NFSW, liquidy, melty, gooey, shape-shifting, lesbian, moment, sexual moment, if you will, intimate moment, unlike anything we've ever visually read before. And it's basically going to take everything, that we've seen prior in the other chapters, from the end of chapter 5 throughout, throughout 6 and, and 7 and even 9 and at the end of 10. It's going to take those and it's going to multiply it by 100, if not 1,000, and it's going to be like anything we've seen prior or read and seen visually in our minds prior. But yeah, those are just my predictions, guys, and let me know what your thoughts are down below. Comment if you like. Love to hear from each and every one of you. Live chats will be open. You know where to support me, and also support DezzieArts' work on DeviantArt as well. I know she will greatly appreciate it. But until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later.